So I watched a fantastic documentary about the war in Ukraine, and it starts off November 20th, 2013. Now, the reason that that's an important date is because it is the day before the president of Ukraine pulls out of talks with the EU. So everybody knew he was going to cut off contact because the EU was trying to sell him a deal that was not good for Ukraine. So he was going to go with a deal with Russia. So I've talked about that in another video, but what I haven't talked about is what happened on November 20th, 2013. In the parliament in Ukraine, they announced that they're going to go to war with the backing of the United States Embassy, the full backing of the United States Embassy. And they talk about something called Tech Camp 2.0. So I was like, okay, what is that? I'm going to read you a press release from the United States Department of State. Okay, so this is our diplomacy area. At the time, Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. So this is September 11th, 2012. From September 12th, 2012, the U.S. State Department will host Tech Camp Kiev at Master Class Cultural Center in Kiev, Ukraine. Tech Camp Kiev marks the 14th Tech Camp supporting Secretary Clinton's Civil Society 2.0, an initiative which builds the digital literacy of civil society organizations around the world. Tech Camp is a signature program of Civil Society 2 and a 2-day training event pairing leaders in the technology community with civil society organizations to provide training, resources, and support that enable civil society organizations to harness the latest connection technologies to build capacity and advance missions. More than 80 civil society leaders from throughout the Ukraine and surrounding countries will come together to get hands-on training in areas ranging from social media use, online organizing, digital safety, website development, digital citizen journalism, and more. These civil society organizations will be poised to use connection technologies to grow their networks, communicate more effectively, and be able to keep pace with the changing world. As Secretary Clinton said in announcing Civil Society 2.0, this organized effort will provide new technologies to civil society organizations. We will send experts in digital technology and communications to help build capacity. To date, Tech Camp has trained more than 850 civil society organizations from more than 50 countries around the world. Connection technologies build new networks of relationships, enhance skill development, and create new avenues for communication. Adoption of these tools by civil society organizations will help support the missions of these groups as well as broader society goals of democracy, transparency, and good governance in the 21st century. Okay, so Tech Camp and Civil Society 2.0 are together, and they were initiatives from Hillary Clinton. So in the beginning clip of this documentary, which is it's all news clips and CCTV footage from Ukraine of some of the bombings and things like that. So it's not anybody telling you what's happening or whatever. You get to watch it for yourself and make up your own mind. But in the beginning, it starts off with the parliament in Ukraine, and they're saying that this tech camp and civil society, they are teaching people how to use the media, basically how to push propaganda is what it seems to be saying. So as I was watching, I was like, oh my goodness. So this was something that they were building up to because they knew that they wanted to go to war. Now this corresponds with the information about, Zelensky running and saying that he was going to sign the Minsk agreements and then never signing them and never implementing them. So Ukraine and Russia had, gone and negotiated in Minsk, Belarus, and France and Germany, their leaders were there. But now Angela Merkel and Zelensky both say that there was never a plan to sign the agreements. The plan was always to go to war. So that's why it was so urgent that we got money and weapons to Ukraine. And that's why, Like they made a big deal about Trump not sending the aid to Ukraine immediately because they were preparing for war, because they knew that if they did not enact the agreements, the Minsk agreements soon, that Putin was going to be like, what? You said you're going to do this. So after Zelensky got elected, they only had so much time to prepare. And I mean, they had been preparing for this war. Obviously, the war had already started, but they were preparing for a bigger, larger scale war. They already had war going on in the eastern end of Ukraine. But the interesting thing about that is it was Ukraine attacking Ukraine. And this is a tactic that the United States has used to overthrow governments before. They've used it in Haiti, which it's currently in chaos. And I'll do a video on that later. But this is a tactic. You get insurgents or, rebels inside the country to attack the country. So you really don't have to do anything. And then you set them up for a broader war. So that is exactly what happened in Ukraine. And you don't have to take my word for it. You need to watch this documentary. It's 5 hours long. So watch it over a few days, whatever. But this guy, all he's done is, and I mean, not all he's done, he's done a fantastic job of pulling together information, news clips, interviews, speeches, all that stuff from really Western media sites. There are a few clips in there that are probably from European media and news, but for the most part, you're going to recognize, if you watch American media at all, you'll recognize these reporters and things like that. So it's not like he's not creating something where he's telling you what to think, which I really like, but you need to watch this because as I'm researching this, I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like this is a more orchestrated deal. So the documents are below and the link to the documentary is below. I really hope that you get a chance to check it out. Even if you just watch the first hour, you'll get the gist of what's going on. And then here's just a little tiny clip, that beginning scene with the Ukrainian parliament. It has subtitles and everything.
Прошу, народный депутат Олег Царев.
Уважаемые коллеги, уважаемый Владимир Васильевич, ко мне как народному депутату Украины обратились активисты общественной организации «Воля», которые предоставили убедительные свидетельства того, что на территории нашего государства при поддержке и при непосредственном участии посольства Соединенных Штатов Америки осуществляется проект «Техкомп», в рамках которого ведется подготовка к разжиганию гражданской войны на Украине. Проект «Техкомп» направлен на подготовку специалистов по информационным войнам и дискредитации государственных институтов современных медиа, потенциальных революционеров для организации протестных действий, свержения государственного режима. Проект находится под патронатом и кураторством посла Соединенных Штатов в Украине Джеффри Пайета.
Ukraine had an historical